Welcome to Chronicles of the Phoenix. How are you?
I'm a little sleepy today. We've been grinding.
We have been, and it's weird that we're doing this in the afternoon. I feel like we normally hit the ground running with our pod, so we'll have to see what afternoon podcasting is about.
We are. Perhaps I should have had a little caffeine today. This afternoon. Afternoon caffeine.
Yeah, I still have some coffee left in my cup if you want some.
I might have to borrow some of your caffeine. Or made mine.
Oh,
Maybe I'll DoorDash myself a little coffee.
that's not a bad idea. I think
Right?
we can get some desserts, maybe. We need a little treat.
A little pick-me-up.
Yeah, a little after pick me up.
Yeah, I'm hitting the post 2 p.m. crash.
I feel
I'm
you.
gonna bring it. This conversation always energizes me. I'm gonna bring it.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Well, today we're talking about burnout.
Yes. It is, as Jen Hatmaker says, Maycember.
Maycember.
Yeah.
I know.
I feel it deeply.
We got through it. Yeah. And it's where we are into June.
It trickles into June, though. It's not. It does trickle.
She's in the South, and I think that's why.
That is true. They get done with school in May.
It's really June-cember for us.
It's like May, June, December.
Yes. And so what we're talking about is burnout isn't just exhaustion. It's disconnection.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed, but also weirdly alone in it?
I feel like when I'm overwhelmed, I'm just like in the grind, not thinking of anything else, needing to have a lot of downtime, like after a busy day kind of thing, I guess. If I think of like what it's like to experience burnout, I think I don't make as much time for things that are important to me because I don't feel like I have time.
Right. And I think right now what's going on when we reference like May, June, December for the phase of life that we're in, what we're referencing is all of the end of school field trips, concerts, graduations, promotions, awards, different sporting events as they wrap up. Like it's just like nonstop getting everything in. And then the school pressure goes up because the teachers need to get all the things done. The kids are, at least my kids are, overwhelmed by getting all the work that they want to get done to close out the year well. My son just texted and said he's going to be doing homework, which is my son who's not a homework person, saying that he's going to be doing homework all night.
Wow, really?
I know.
Hayden?
Shocker. But that is what he said.
Wow. All right. Yeah. I mean, and I get that. Like, I think there's so much that's happening. I saw this post the other day and I sent it to my sister because it was the May elementary school calendar of events, and it was like 20 things long.
Yeah.
And I saw it on social media, so I shared it with her, like, I'm sure you have this, but just in case this is out of control, I wanted to make sure you had it, because it's like every other day is they had bike to school day. Like, there's just so many things that happen that I understand are fun, but it just feels like there really is a season to this stuff where like everything gets crammed into one time and there's not really like a good way to spread it out like throughout the year. I mean,
right. And then if you're like, we experienced this in our former position for a lot of organizations, fiscal year end is June 30th. So you're trying to wrap up your books and do your budget and
so the stress is higher at work too. Like, it's not like you're kind of skating through into summer. It's like right up until that July 1, like getting everything done. I always remember that pattern too.
Right. And for the state too, the state, and at least in Connecticut, the state fiscal years, July 1.
Right. Yeah. So you have that pattern that's in there. And right. So a lot of working families as well. And whether you're, you have kids or not, like I think this time of year, just in general, is when a lot starts happening. Like I've been talking with a lot of adults about activities and things that they've wanted to get into. And even the folks I've been talking to, they're like, everything is on like the same certain nights of the week. Like I want to get into this activity or join this group, and everything sort of seems to be happening all at once. It's like we get through long winter into spring, and then we get like so close to summer and everything starts for that next stage of life or next stage of the season.
Yeah, and I also think with the weather, like you're uh, coming out of hibernation, and you have more energy usually, and you want to move on to the next thing and get outside, but it's also, at least in New England, variable.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have days where if you look at your weather app, it looks like the weekend is going to be gorgeous. And then it's rainy and 40 degrees out
Mm-hmm.
all weekend. So you have planned boating or hiking or whatever weekend out all day outside, and you have to completely pivot your plans. So how you were planning to recharge has to completely change because now
Right.
you have to break out your sweatshirts and hoodies and stuff
Yeah.
again.
And like, yeah, we don't get the opportunity, like the things we look forward to that we're like, oh, this is totally going to help or look, kind of give us that experience we're looking for this time of year, just kind of go by the wayside if it's not actually like nice enough and all that stuff.
Yeah. Um, so I feel like you're just it just results in you constantly feeling on.
Mm-hmm.
And that loop results in us disconnecting from
Mm-hmm.
yourself, from others, and sometimes from purpose, from the why that keeps you moving forward.
I actually love that.
Mm.
That one, that specific one feels super right to me in terms of how I define burnout. Like, or if I were to envision what it feels like for me, I think that is a big piece of what happens is like when you have so much on your plate, you don't have time to check in with yourself as much. And so you're not really holding on to the bigger picture about why we're doing what we do or what our values are, what's important to us. It just becomes like survival mode. Yeah.
Well, you feel like you're on that hamster wheel, right? It's like when you're having that same fight with your spouse over and over again
Mm-hmm.
on loop. I think that's can be what burnout feels like when you're just going through the motions, but you're not actually experiencing the joy and connection and um, value that you typically get out of the experience and the reason, the why that you would have engaged in that activity or
Right.
experience or why you connected with those individuals or, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you don't experience that and you're exhausted, if it feels like a non-necessity, you find yourself disconnecting or pulling away.
Yeah. And I think in our relationships, they suffer as a result of that, right? Whether we have a goal of engaging in relationships more or trying to like improve our social life, or one of our values is to be able to spend time with people who mean something to us. And, or if it's just the sheer, our particular family at that moment is going through this whole cycle together, but then it creates more disconnection. So I just find there tends to be like more missed connection during this time. Do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. The thing that just popped in my head too is that I'm curious about it, especially because you've done so much research and study with the Enneagram. I feel like sometimes when you're in a burnout place, you're obviously more in your stressed number.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the different Enneagram numbers manage burnout?
Mm. I mean, I definitely think you're right. I think that burnout lends itself to functioning in your stress. So I think, you know, um, I think what we know with Enneagram is that we are most grounded, right? It ties into that losing your why stuff too. Like, I think when you look at the different motivators, and Enneagram is huge on understanding what's motivating you, when we move into our stress space, I think we don't often see it as much. And then once we're there, we can feel what that feels like, but we're not necessarily doing what we need to take care of it and to get back into balance. So, like, for me, if I move to 6 and stress, I'm an Enneagram 9, right? That's going to be more of I have to just stay in the zone of like hypervigilance and looking out for issues because so much is happening at the same time. And I'm not great at processing super fast. So if there's 10 dates to track on the calendar and my work schedule and everything else in my life, my head would stay in the space of like, I'm running through it at night, anxiously, like anticipating what we have to do. Um, but not in a sense that it's like proactive or like, oh, what do we have coming up? Let's have a conversation, family, and prepare for this. Like, it's more so I would go into a space of like it keeps me up at night kind of thing because I'm like trying to anticipate what could go wrong with the next day, and rather than allowing myself to get back into a more grounded, like body-based place, right? Because nines operate from the body. So for you as a 7, right? Sevens and stress go to 1. How do you think that shows up for you in burnout?
Um, I I go to just action and I lose relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think I take things more personal.
Mm.
So but I tend to just want to get things done as quickly as possible and move fast. So I know that like in a text message or something, I I'll like text and ask a question and I'll remember and then I'll remember like, oh, go back and say like, oh, good morning. And that, like
Yeah.
it's like just I'm focusing on what the task and what I need to get done because I have this like lengthy ticker tape of what I need to get done and I just have to like I'm focusing on getting my list done
Mm-hmm.
in that stressed one more so than connection and relationship
Mm-hmm.
and checking that off. And then I think I'm more sensitive and misreading um what's happening. Like I'm more
Yeah.
hypercritical.
In relationship too, right? Like, and so that's where I think that idea of missed connection can come in because it's not like we're not in touch. Like, I don't think every person in burnout only isolates, like I know that that's different for every one of us. And I think Enneagram helps us understand that. But I do think there's a lot more room for connection to be missed because there's so much going on and it's just, we end up in this, it makes me think of what we did a lot in some leadership training that we do where we would look at like red, green, and gold.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we teach about and we've also learned about in leadership trainings is like the different places in terms of how you're functioning. And so red is much more micro task oriented, um, leans into more like critical micromanaging, right? If we're looking at it in a job. Green is sort of a blend in the middle there where it's like I can zoom out a little bit and I can see a little more. And I think there we can start to consider relationship and like the impact we're having or what's happening. But gold is really the zone where we're functioning at our best, stress level is managed, we can see the full picture, we can lean in relationally and understand what's going on around us and not necessarily have like a quick judgment or take something personal. That's a very big, like high level
Yeah.
view at this, right? But when you said it that way, that's what I was thinking is like when we get into that red micro task, like everything else sort of fades away. We're like honed in and zoomed in on the thing. And then when you zoom that camera out and you're able to see everything else, like it takes real practice and intentionality to do that when we're in the burnout phase.
Right. I also think that there's a lot of people that function well in burnout and are high functioning burnout,
Mm-hmm.
where everything looks fine externally, but internally are numb, irritated, and drained.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't always look like falling apart. It looks like, quietly holding it together while disappearing on the inside. And oftentimes those are the people that feel like internalize it as I should be able to handle all of this. I should be able to keep it together and are in light of some of the conversations that we've had too with the external validation, but also all of the external comparison that we do as a society of, and the fake booking or whatever,
Oh,
right? Where it looks like people around you are keeping it together, even though a lot of people post the best parts.
mhm.
Like you're not necessarily posting the hardest parts of your day, but like,
Right.
but you're putting out what you want to, the celebrations of your life, um, which is great and wonderful, but at the same time, like it creates this false narrative, or people might misperceive that Courtney can manage 2 jobs, 2 bands, raising a wonderful kid, and never skips a beat, and is the happiest, most peaceful, content human I've ever met in her life, and, like, she's angelic and superhuman. How could I, like, how could
That's
I
me.
ever live up to her? Like, this is
Right.
crazy, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely, and I do. I think that there's a lot of masking that comes into play, and I think when people are in high pressure environments or even, like, have that high functioning anything, right? I think we all see, like, high functioning anxiety, like, high functioning, but in this case, high functioning burnout looks yeah, on the outside, it can look like everything is totally fine, but that's where internally the breakdown might be happening, and we can mask that pretty well.
Right, and it sets this expectation that, like, that's the bar, and
Right.
I
No
sh
one should be complaining or no one should have an issue, right? It sets up this perfectionistic, I think, approach for others around you who see it to kind of be like, oh, that's how I should be functioning, even when things are really hard.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot in my, practice too, on a lot of levels of, I should be able to manage this. I don't have it as hard as other people. My life isn't as hard. I haven't experienced the challenges as other people. Um,
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
and, not giving permission to honor whatever your experience is and whatever the reason that your burnout is, and
Hmm.
honoring and accepting that, and then moving through it.
Right. Because I think people struggle, and I talk to people about this too, but struggle with the idea that like everyone's hard is hard for that
Yeah.
person and that you can accept that for yourself. Like just because somebody else has gone through something, I think that's a mindset, right? I think people get the idea of like gratitude confused with like this comparison because I
Mhm.
think we do spend a lot of time and I think we see it in all of our algorithms and everything, right? That and honestly we talk about it in mental health that this practice of gratitude and recognizing what's going well in your life helps shape your lens. And so if you focus on what's going well, like you're going to notice it more often. And I fully believe that and recognize how true that is. But I do think it gets confused for some people in that the expectation is that when I start to look at other people who have it worse than me, I shouldn't feel how I feel.
Yes.
This shouldn't be this big of a deal. I don't know why I feel like I need help with this because other people have it way worse. And there's just no way for that comparison. It doesn't work like that. We
Right.
can't, what's hard to us is hard to us, regardless of how anybody else experiences the world. And it doesn't mean that you won't have an emotional reaction to something overwhelming or that you aren't allowed to have the feelings that you feel about a situation, even if it's, a quote unquote first world problem kind of thing, right? I hear
Right.
that a lot too, where people are like, don't let, I guess that's a fine line I think people struggle with, I think at times is to understand where that line is around, not tipping too far into the negative and wanting to bring in, but there's like this whole toxic positivity thing
Yeah.
too, where it's
Yeah.
like we can't just shove the negative emotion away in favor of, well, my life is so good and I shouldn't feel bad and everyone has it worse than me, so I must be happy. It's just not that easy.
Right. Yeah. Well, some of the signs that of burnout that people miss are avoiding text messages from people that you typically love to engage with.
Mhm.
When everything feels like an interruption.
Yep.
I
Yes.
experienced that. Um, when you're fantasizing about canceling everything.
Mhm. Oh, that's my favorite fantasy, I think, of my whole life.
Yes.
It's my favorite, and I love doing
Yes.
it.
Yes. Definitely been there. Um, when when you have resentment towards things that you choose or chose to do,
Sure. Yep.
right? Like, and then you're mad at yourself.
Right. Cause like all this is so busy, but then I signed up for this thing. And why did I set myself up for this week? I know there's so much going on. Like, but this was the thing I chose for myself in a moment where I actually was feeling like I knew I should be doing that. And in the moment, it's like, why would I ever do that to myself? But so I've had that feeling.
Definitely. And then defaulting to, I'm just too busy.
Yeah. I think I do all those things, sadly.
Feel like what do I do most? Probably resenting things that I've chosen to do. Because I feel like I can get, as a 7, so caught up in the moment and be like, oh my gosh, yes, we can do this and do that, and it'll be great. And then after the fact, I'm like, what have I done? I just said yes to so many different things, and it's overwhelming, and I don't know how I'm going to pull all of that off. And it's,
Right. Yeah. Totally. I think that's a huge one for me. I think I can get stuck in the everything feels like an interruption. I just had a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, and we were talking about like their flow at work and how someone's out, and so things are really overwhelming at work, and this person is typically very open and like the helper of the group and always available, and starts to just get super overwhelmed when now everybody's like coming to them for support. And we were really focusing on like how the feeling like what it would be like to have that boundary so that like you're not over giving, and then in the moment when things are stressful, then you're angry that everybody is approaching you or that everyone's interrupting you. And it was interesting because it reminds me of this where I think there's that piece of it too, like what leads to burnout, when you overextend yourself and you make yourself available to everybody at any moment in time. The cycle is then eventually you're going to get burnt on that, or you have one more thing added to your plate. You're not going to be able to manage that. And so then it kind of flips into this zone of either resentment, like you said, for things I chose, right? I've chosen to engage this way. Or I'm feeling like every person that now kind of does the same thing they've always done with me. And I'm like, I can't stop what I'm doing to do this now. Like I'm focused on myself and, or I have my own stuff to do, And so it's just an interesting process to think about and how it ties in fully to this concept with burnout too.
Totally. Yeah. So some practical tools. There's some practical tools to combat that.
So the first thing I think is thinking about your connection, right? So doing like a connection audit and understanding where I'm overgiving and underconnecting. Right. So that example I was just giving, right? That's a great example of like I'm over giving to like my work. I'm putting all these hours in. And so therefore, like I actually cut off the connection with other people because I feel like I don't have time for it, or it's an interruption for me, or it's like a problem. So I think when you're looking and evaluating yourself, it's making sure you're making the time for the connection in whatever way feels right. It doesn't have to be with those people at work, but it could be like when I get home, I'm not taking this home with me, and I'm going to have that one person I'm going to have a connection with, even if it's a phone call on your ride home.
Sure.
You and I do that all the time. Like,
yeah.
we can spend a day together and work, and still be like, oh, let's talk about other things like on our ride. And that's when we might catch up on like what we're doing with our family or all of that stuff.
Let's tell you this, right? Yeah.
Right. And so I do think that there are ways to build this in, even if it doesn't feel like you have time. And so you want to just make sure you build that in. You identify even like one person that you can have a connection with each day, and or challenging yourself to just like be open and reach out to one person, even if it is via text or something.
Cool. Yeah. I think another one is that piece of losing sight of your why and the values, because it's so much. Burnout is about disconnection.
Yep.
And so finding ways to reconnect with yourself.
Yep.
And tap back into what you need and what will fuel your soul again. And we're so tapped into technology. And so even if it's if the weather's nice, sitting outside for 5 minutes, device free.
Yeah.
So you can just be in your thoughts, going for a walk in nature, doing that bilateral stimulation that,
Oh,
well, I personally love that helps process,
Yep.
and it just might tap in what it is that maybe is contributing to your burnout that you haven't figured out what it is. Because it might be one thing, it might be two things. It could be that, the job, there's something about the job that's not quite right. It could be that you just need to take a few days off, that you need a family vacation, like whatever it might be. That time with yourself to just reconnect with yourself would be really help. It's not, recovery isn't an escape, it's reconnection.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so I'm not hiding from whatever I have to do tonight that I'm not finished with. If I take 5 minutes outside and I'm not connecting with anyone else on my phone or anything, I'm just giving myself this time. Like, it's actually a way that we can then refuel. And I think I love, like you said, I'm always talking to people too about like getting back in your body. I think when we're burnt, I don't know about you, but it becomes such a head thing. Like, we're so stuck in our thoughts. We're going, right, that task focus part. It's like, it's the ticker tape, like you said, like running through your head. So I always think of that in like, how do we integrate mind and body?
Yes.
And when we're so stuck here, the feeling of burnout, to me, like, we're living here. We're living in, what do I have to do? Thought, 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 thought. And not really allowing ourselves to like get back in touch and go like, wow, what do I even need? Like, my head is not attached to my body right now, and I didn't realize I was dehydrated today.
Yeah.
Or I, I'm actually really tired and I need to go to bed early or whatever. Like, we just avoid all of that to just keep going.
I've talked to so many people that are like, yeah, no, once I finally sat, I didn't realize that I hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch, and I just,
And that's going to impact how you feel.
Absolutely.
Right. But you might put it on something else at the time because you're like, oh, so much is overwhelming, and you're realizing like you're not prioritizing yourself.
Right.
I love that. And I was thinking about the other reconnection. It was a year ago that we were at the leadership training at Harvard. And I remember they had us do that writing exercise. So a piece of this it was more about grounding and like taking the time. But again, if you were to take 2 minutes to reconnect with yourself, they had us just free journal, no prompt for 2 minutes straight. And that's it. And even taking that 2 minutes to just dump whatever was in your head allows you to reset. And so anyone who's saying, the whole point of it was, anyone who's saying, I don't have time for this in my day, like, you have 2 minutes.
Right.
You can create 2 minutes of time. So I love that. I think that's like another way to access that. Yeah. And so I think the other tool that we can do is looking at like how we can lower the bar of expectations, and essentially not putting so much pressure on ourselves to do it perfectly or the way we always do it.
Sure.
Right. So whether it's as parents, whether it's just at work, that, we can lower that bar and it doesn't impact like who we are as people or say that we're doing a bad job. Like, if you're picking up takeout that night because you're not going to cook dinner, and I don't really usually cook dinner, but I know a lot of people, it's important to them, right, to like have that plan and follow through. And so, it's like, oh, I volunteered to do this thing at the school, like, or bring this thing in. Like, I am not cooking that thing. Like, I will buy cookies at the store and send them in with my kid, and that's fine. Like, that's good enough. So just recognizing that, the go, go, go mentality, like, doesn't mean we have to stick with what our idea is of what we were going to do. We can lower the bar and give ourselves a little grace.
Absolutely. And I think in that same vein, it's perfectly acceptable and appropriate and necessary to have boundaries. So, you should be saying, I don't have capacity right now, which is different than saying, I don't want to, which is, I think, also okay to say. Or I can't do it, and it's okay. Like,
change your mind.
You can change your mind, but it's also like, it's not you telling yourself like, I can't do it. It's just like, I don't have capacity in this moment because these variables are happening.
Right.
But eventually I will have capacity again when my children are teeny tiny, or I'm not taking care of my elderly parents, or like whatever phase of life you're in at that moment, or I'm not working a 80-hour a week job. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't allow me the time to do X, Y, or Z. It's just in this moment in time, I don't have capacity. Eventually I will. And when I do, I will be able to commit to that, but I cannot right now.
Mm.
It's okay to say, I'll get back to you. You know,
Yeah.
I need to think about that, and give yourself permission to go out and sit on the porch and really tap into your self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
Will this actually serve me to do this? And will I be able to be present and in the moment and actually feel connected and be a good friend if I do say yes to that? Or will I just feel like I'm be irritable and feel like, will I be irritable while I'm doing it? And will I just feel like I've added one more thing on my plate and it's annoying that
Right. Or you have that resentment.
I have that resentment. That's the word I was looking for, resentment.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. I think that is one of the most important pieces of this, because that's why the grounding is so important. That's why having the 5 minutes outside or checking in with yourself or the journaling, right? You're able to recognize that sometimes it's the sheer amount of stuff on your plate that's the problem. So trying to continue to commit and say yes to things doesn't make any sense, or even having to go back and say, like, this thing I said I would do, I'm not doing. I can't do it. I don't have the capacity. And that's not a failure.
No, because then when you show up, when you do say yes and you show up and you're not able to be your best self, then you're not a great, you might be irritable, you might be shut down or um in your head and not present. And then your friends or family might be like, what's wrong with Erin? Why is she, and like, or you might feel bad that you weren't able to be present, or you're on your phone the whole time, disconnected. So sometimes you're actually being a better friend
Right.
by saying no and taking care of yourself, because then the next time you show up, you'll be able to be fully present.
Yes. I love that. I think that's so very true. I'm curious if you noticed this, because when you were talking, I was thinking about, it's interesting when I think of burnout right now. It's weird because this has come up like twice already today, but I have not felt the level of burnout in my life that I had felt in our old job since, like, even though there's been stressful things in my life, in it's other areas of my life, but part of what was contributing to burnout in, mm, you know, my previous job was that feeling of, like, availability all the time.
Mhm.
And that partially was self-imposed and partially was, like, part of the job. And I remember just feeling like I couldn't be present and I needed to do what I was doing, right? I didn't feel like I prioritized the ability for me to say no to things, and I didn't, for whatever reason, right? I think there's so much that goes into that when it comes to your job. It's it's the job itself, it's the culture, right? There's so much that comes into why we do that. But when you talk about, like, saying I'll get back to you to somebody, right? Or figuring out how to prioritize things, if I were to look back and see, like, what I wish I did better to protect my own peace during that time would be to do that more often, kind of give a pause, let people know that I'll get back to you tomorrow. That's not a priority to me right now. And I feel like what that does, because oftentimes these would be like people in, that looked up to us as in our role, whether it was like we were their supervisors or we were overseeing, something where some decision might need to be made. And it was always hard to identify, like, what was emergent and what was like, okay, this might be an urgent thing, but like not a tonight thing, maybe tomorrow morning. And over time, I got better with that. But I think there's also such a piece to this that, and I think this relates in all areas of our lives, whether it's our social lives as well, that for me, I felt like I was creating this system where I was always available, and therefore I felt really guilty and bad when I wasn't.
Mhm.
And I also then wasn't giving people a chance to, like, navigate things on their own sometimes.
Sure.
And so sometimes, I guess I'm just saying all this because when you mentioned, like, telling people I'll get back to you or I'll answer you tomorrow, I'll have to think about this, is it creates this intentional space where sometimes that person goes off and figures out whatever they have going on.
Sure.
If that's the ask or whatever it is. Or And so even just having that pause sometimes is enough for the solution to kind of find itself,
Mhm.
or people to recognize that they also can't just expect that you're going to be responding immediately
Mhm.
and that it's a problem if you're not, right? You almost have to create that distance to be like, it's okay for us to say, I'll get back to you.
Right.
And you don't expect an immediate response from me. Because I let that build as pressure for me if I'm like a quick responder. Like I feel like I have to maintain that.
I think that I think it does create culture. Like every reaction has a or every action has a reaction, right? Like, and I think that was what we experienced. And what I think about a lot is that, to your point, it created a reliance on the leadership, and it didn't allow confidence to be built in the staff below.
Right. To make their decisions or to come, right. I think we oftentimes we're trying to support people in those roles to feel like they could come to us like, if I'm not confident in my decision, I'm still going to present you with what my solution would be. Can you just like
Vet
thumbs
it.
up or thumbs down this for me, And we have the opportunity, right, vet it to say, oh, great, go ahead. Or, you know what, let's process this tomorrow. I don't think we're there yet, but that's okay. Like it doesn't have to be. So I think you're right. But it's interesting the intersection here. And this was another conversation I had with someone this week about this same idea of just how this comes into play and how you actually do prevent people from feeling like they can grow or come up with their own solutions. And it results in you over functioning, which is a huge part of your own burnout.
Yeah, and I think it happens with as a parent too. Like you feel like you need to care for your kids and provide them everything, and you want to like, you know, show up. And I talk to parents sometimes that I work with about that of like, you know, eh, the balance of how to step back and let the
Mm,
kids sort of falter a little bit.
right. And they learn so much from it. And we know that when we see it, but it's so hard to take that first step or to even sometimes notice the ways in which you overfunction
Mm-hmm.
because our kids are developing over time. And so they're capable of more and more. But it's like sometimes we just stay doing the same things we always do.
Yeah. And that and yeah, I think that's why the pause is so important to be able to have that reflection so that you can see the forest from the trees,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I do think like I think about it a lot like I want to show up in spaces as the best version of myself, and when I'm burnt out or in a stressed space, I'm not. So I try to be mindful of that. And as a result, and I've learned, how to, obviously I'm still a work in progress, obviously, but more often than not, try to like honor that and
Mm-hmm.
have boundaries and say, no, I can't do that, or whatever it is, so that when I do show up, I can be present and the best version of myself.
Right. And that's where we feel the most connection anyway, right? When we're authentic and we're vulnerable and we can show up as ourselves and we meet someone else in that same space, like that is the basis for connection. And I think that's exactly why in this season of life, when we are in a burnout space, that disconnection is so prevalent.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when we think about connection, I think that's a perfect segue
Mm.
to something we are so excited about, which is we're going to have our second guest.
Yeah, we are.
And our second guest, Molly Keene, who is the creator and co-author of the book Cojourn. And what can you tell us about Cojourn and Molly?
Well, we had the honor of getting to be booth mates with Molly and her colleagues at the Tri-State SHRM Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just fabulous. Their values aligned with ours, and we just had an instant connection. And as we were talking to Molly and learning more about her book, we bought the book,
Mm-hmm.
and we said, Molly, we would love to have you on our podcast and to come to our resilient circle. And she said, yes. So Cojourn is about accountability, connection, and bringing support back into your life. It really, she'll tell you all about it, but it came into her life. She developed it and when she really needed it during her PhD journey, and it has been really transformative for her and has been around for over a decade, and internationally and in the States, in academia, and now is expanding into the workplace.
Yes, and that's what we're so excited to hear about because I think it's where sort of our journeys intersect, and it was just so awesome to hear that she'd been doing all of this work and, understanding this process of, like, accountability and personal growth and how to have, achieve your goals, but, like, alongside a person in connection, and then that's kind of like the best, soil for the flower to grow, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the cool part was that we were with her at this SHRM conference, so we were learning about how they were building all this into work, like you're saying, and that's sort of the next step for them. And that's, we're entering into this new stage of life for us. And, it just felt like our journeys were all of a sudden kind of coming from very different places and then like aligning in this area.
Yeah.
So we were super happy to hear about the awesome stuff that she's doing and the research she's done and writing she's done on connection. And we are very much looking forward to having her on the episode after this one, where you'll get to hear all about it from her and what her journey has been.
Yeah. So if you're feeling burned out right now, maybe the answer isn't to do more or fix everything. Maybe it's that you need to feel seen again by someone else and by yourself personally.
Mm-hmm.
And Cojourn will certainly help you. So definitely learn more about that.
Yeah, check out the book. It's been awesome. It's been an awesome read so far. I'm still in it. And so as always, we have takeaways for today's episode.
Our takeaways for today are: burnout isn't about doing too much. It's about feeling disconnected while doing it. And the way out isn't to push harder, it's to reconnect. Even in small ways, even imperfectly, because you were never meant to carry all of this alone.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the next couple weeks, just think about what's disconnecting you the fastest and what helps you feel like yourself again. If you can lean into those things that just regrounds you in yourself, I think it's going to help tremendously.
And lastly, burnout isn't just exhaustion, it's disconnection. And healing doesn't come from doing less perfectly. It comes from reconnecting, even a little at a time.
Yes. So hold on to that. Think about it. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
With Molly!
Yay!
Hey!
Have a good one.